Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Sportslook, the sports television program for the high plains of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and if you liked last week's episode, you're going to love tonight's show because we're going to keep the same format, only bigger and better. We're going to have the head coach of Greyhound women's basketball, for example, Megan De Los Reyes. We're going to have the associate athletic director, Kelly Higgins. I'll finish up with a fall-themed overtime, but as always, I'll start out with an Eastern recap. The West got the best of Eastern New Mexico last week. West Texas A&M, for example, beat the Greyhound men's soccer team. West Texas A&M beat the Greyhound women's soccer team last week. West Texas A&M beat Greyhound volleyball, and Western Oregon beat Greyhound football. But the one school we played last week that didn't have West in its name, Cameron University, fell to Greyhound volleyball in 5 sets. Well, that has been your Eastern recap, so we'll clear this out and I'll bring in my first guest, Megan De Los Reyes, right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and a privilege to bring back to the set of Sportslook the head coach of Greyhound women's basketball, Megan De Los Reyes. And Coach, welcome back to Sportslook.
Hi, Doc. Great to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Coach, we really haven't had a chance to talk, now that I think about it, since last March. And congratulations on getting the Greyhound ladies to the Lone Star Conference playoffs, your first year as the head coach, and coming within a 3-point shot at the buzzer that would have gotten you into the second round.
Yeah, that was quite the game. It was a great success to make it to the playoffs, just given the fact that we were coming off a year of COVID, not being able to play like the rest of the conference, and being able to make playoffs and compete so well in our playoff game. I think we were playing our best basketball. Anybody could have won that game, moved on to the next round, but it was a huge accomplishment to get there, and we have high hopes to work on that and build on that momentum from last season.
Sometimes when you take on a new job, you think you know what the job is going to entail, and it turns out to be pretty much what you expected, but there's always that one kind of aha, I didn't see that coming. What was your kind of aha from being a head coach last year?
There's too many to fit all on Sportslook this evening, but I think with coaching, I don't know if you ever have the former. I don't know if you ever can just totally expect what's going to happen and know it's going to happen. Every day is something new and every day is something different. I can't even give you one solid answer to that. There's just so many things that you need to take on day by day and prioritize. But I think one huge thing is just I didn't understand just how great the community was in Portales until I really lived here. Lived and breathed it and just saw how great like my neighbors are, and just the just overwhelming support we have in Greyhound Arena with all of our fans, highest in the Lone Star Conference for attendance last year, and having, a group of basketball moms who basically adopt us as their own throughout the season. And I just have had overwhelming just response from the community, and that's something you can't really know what it's like until you're in it. And so I would say that's one thing in a pleasant way that the unexpected that ended up just far exceeding my expectations.
Excellent. Obviously, one thing that helped your transition was the fact that you had 7 seniors on the squad, but the bad thing about that is they were seniors and you only got to coach them for 1 year.
Yeah, that's what's tough, is right when you start to build those relationships and get to know, and of course them playing together and, within our new system that we brought, then they're often graduating and doing different things, which I'm very proud of that group for, having a 100% graduation rate with 7 great students on top of it. So I'm really, really happy for them. Sad to see them leave the nest, but with that comes new horizons and 9 newcomers. So we also get to welcome some new faces and some great players to the Greyhound squad this year.
And here again, if we gave a detailed biography of all 9, we'd run out of time here on Sportslook and wouldn't have a chance to talk about anything else. But if you can characterize and categorize, what do they have in common? What are they going to bring to the table for you?
So something I think they have in common is a true passion and work ethic for the game. which is kind of fundamental in if you're trying to be a really winning program and a championship level program. They really love the game of basketball. And something that even people who love the game of basketball don't always have is that basketball IQ, having that type of intelligence. And I'm just overwhelmed with joy with what kind of intelligence they've brought to the table. And I think that's just hours in the gym, honing in on their craft, lots of developing and feeling confident in their skills, especially in the off season and coming into the program. And I think we've had a great fall with these newcomers just being able to blend and mesh with each other pretty quickly because of how hard they work and how passionate they are about the game.
Usually, most years, it's like a position or maybe two positions. You've got like the two spot and the four spot, or the three and the five. I imagine you've had to bring in kids at pretty much every position.
Every position. Yes, we brought in some Division I, Division II, and junior college transfers. So those are all juniors and seniors. And then we have 4 freshmen as well. And so even the 4 freshmen are all different positions. What's great about our group this year is I think our versatility is something that's a huge advantage. We have many players that can play multiple positions on the floor, which I think makes us a little bit more difficult to guard because they have different skill sets that can work at different positions. And then another commonality I think that might be an advantage for us is probably our speed and athleticism. I think you might notice that if you look at our roster, it doesn't look all that daunting because we don't have the real height advantage in any way. But I do think that translates into a fast group that can push the pace of the ball.
Yeah, and obviously you were counting on having a certain number of young ladies come back. Unfortunately, from what I understand, one young lady, Julia Chavez, isn't going to be able to play this year.
She's not going to be able to play, unfortunately, because of a knee injury. But I'll tell you one thing, we do have some seniors out with injury. They are great leaders from the sideline because that's also an area where you can show leadership and really with such great basketball minds, being able to help even coach them on the sideline and help them through. They're experienced. They know what it's like, especially for our 4 freshmen. So Julia's one definitely who is just so committed to the program. She's an outstanding worker, a 4.0 student. I mean, she's somebody who just is an example of what it takes to be a college athlete, and everyone looks up to her, and she's been such a great leader.
And I have to compliment her because a couple of weeks ago, the cross country team hosted a meet in Clovis. And even though she was on crutches, she got up there on a Saturday morning
Yeah.
to cheer on her fellow student athletes.
Yeah, and that's just a tribute to who she is as a person. She, even though she can't do things at our 7 a.m., weights or practice, she's there. And she's the first one there, and she leads our dynamics every day. I mean, there's just things that she takes over because of who she is. And then same thing, off the court, it doesn't change. Julia is who she is. She's such a genuine person. She will show up for anybody and support and just be so genuine and loving and caring. And we just love Julia. We're so sad that she can't play the senior year. We keep telling her you do have that year left if you want to take it, and you're always welcome in this program because she's just outstanding in every way.
And we talked about the fact you've got some new players coming in, but you also got a new assistant coach.
Yes, absolutely. Martin Pizanin is his name. He's originally from Chicago, like my husband, which is unique. But he has had actually a lot of experience. I feel so fortunate to have an assistant coach with so much experience in his past. He started as a high school head coach for girls basketball. So it's great. He's been able to think both sides of the ball and all sorts of different, thinking like a head coach is what is really helpful in an assistant coach, to be honest. And then he started as a boys NAIA assistant coach before he hopped over to the women's side. You got to get your foot in the door somewhere. And he is one of those people, also extremely hardworking and just loves the game of basketball. He eats, drinks, sleeps basketball. So he's always constantly learning, growing. And he did some stints at UCLA and Washington and Loyola Marymount, all on the West Coast. Got some great experience. He's a analytics guy and video coordinator guy, but that is only a piece of what is so great about Coach P. And he's just absolutely wonderful on the floor. He does a great job with an offensive mind. And so he's been doing a ton for us in terms of developing our offense and putting in different sets. And then that allows me some time on the defensive side of the ball. And I think we just make a great partnership. And of course, I have Yeremi Mejia, second year as a graduate assistant coach as well. And so I feel great about our coaching staff. I couldn't ask for any better.
And continuing the theme of new, we've got a new format for the Lone Star Conference this year.
Yes, I like it. I like it. It separates the West and the East, and we are in the West Division. We get to play the closer teams twice. I think we have a pretty tough division. I think we have a pretty tough conference, but we do play those teams twice, home and away. This makes our travel a little bit more just bearable, I guess, because we do have some really far trips. We won't be going to Laredo this year. We won't be going to Tyler this year. They get to come to us. But on the flip side, we'll be going out to Arkansas Fort Smith. That will be our long trip. But yeah, I do like the style of the conference. I like that all of our games are counters this time around, and I think it's looking for a really good year and competitive year in the Lone Star Conference.
And for Greyhound women's basketball, you're going to be opening up November 11th and 12th, if I remember correctly, in Las Vegas, not the glitzy one with the hotels and everything.
Not that one.
The New Mexico version.
Correct.
And you're going to be playing crossover games against the Rymac.
Yeah, I love that we're staying in state. I think that we might bring some of Ashley Shippey's fans from Tucumcari right up the road. But yes, I love that we're playing in New Mexico. We're at Highlands this year, which is the host for our conference challenge, playing some RMAC teams. We have Fort Lewis first on the 11th, and then we have Highlands second on the 12th. The men's team is actually up there as well. So we both have our conference challenge in Las Vegas, New Mexico this year. And we're really looking forward to it. Whenever we can play some strong D2 teams and really just get our feet wet at the beginning of the season, I think it's a wonderful challenge for us. And being so close to home. I mean, that's not too far, so all the fans can come out and see our new product on the 11th and 12th.
And if they don't want to travel farther than the friendly confines of Greyhound Arena, when's the first chance we're going to see on the home hardwood?
Thanksgiving week. So, yeah, and of course, bringing friends and family is important too. Whoever's in town for the holidays, we play on Wednesday, the 23rd, and we play on Saturday, the 26th. And so both games at home, again, against Division II teams. One is actually from Florida, Eckerd College, on Wednesday. That's going to be an awesome, awesome challenge for us because they have been a team that's had 20 or more wins in the past, I believe, 6 seasons or so. So they're a really, really strong team coming from Florida. And then we have Western Colorado, another RMAC school that we will play on Saturday. So that would be a great way to start it off at home Thanksgiving week.
Well, Coach, congratulations on the success you had your first year as the head coach, and let's hope that that three-pointer goes in this time and we advance at least one more round.
We've been working on that. We're working really hard right now, Coach. Doc. We're working really hard, Doc, to make sure that happens, and we push even further at the end in March this year. That's our whole goal. So we're looking forward to seeing you. We're looking forward to seeing all the fans in Greyhound Arena.
Best of luck.
Thanks so much.
Well, that is going to wrap up our first interview segment, so we'll clear the set, and I'll bring in my second guest, Kelly Higgins, right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and we bring to the set for the very first time of Sportslook the Associate Athletic Director at Eastern New Mexico University, Kelly Higgins. And Kelly, if I didn't know that the song was written before you came to prominence, I would swear you were the subject of the Johnny Cash song, I've Been Everywhere, Man.
That's a great one-liner to get me on, Doc. I'm serious.
Well, you have been at quite a few places before you got to Eastern New Mexico University. It would probably take the entire segment to go through all of them. So give us kind of the short where you were from and how you got here.
Great question. I'll try to make it as short as I can, Doc. Originally, the Higgins family is from Omaha, Nebraska. Father was a lifelong football, baseball, high school coach, AD, and inducted in the Hall of Fame in the state. Some years ago, somehow dragged the rest of the family into the Hall of Fame with him because of that, because it was a family thing. Our family is 8 of us, 8 kids, and most of us followed some sort of track into sports. Some did not. All have been successes in their lives to in some format or another. Probably the most famous family members, my younger brother, John, who's a NCAA Division I men's basketball official, who's participated and refereed 5 championship games and 8 Final Fours.
Wow.
John Higgins. So he's very talented. We're very proud of him. We have another brother's All-American at Kearney State. Another played at Doane. 2 sisters who ran track in college. So we've all enjoyed sports, and that's pretty much who we are. We're about sports and education in a lot of ways. My career took me a segue from a degree at Temple University eventually so I could follow my passion in sports, and it got me into the Omaha Royals for a couple of years as sales, and that segued into friends from Temple getting me a job at American University in Washington, D.C. So I stayed there for 5 years as associate AD, operations, events. Had some amazing experiences there. Even met a couple presidential family members at events at the university because it's DC and you host things there. From there, went to the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference for a year, which got me opportunities to out in the West where we wanted to go with the family and the young kids, and ended up in the University of Alaska for 4 years as AD, and then 6 years at University of South Dakota, in the alma mater, back from my playing days, and then moved the family to Omaha when I started doing consulting work and took on the interim AD job at University of District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. Back in D.C. again for 3 to 4 years. Depends on how you call it, 3 years full-time and then a year part-time as consulting. And then went out to Fort Lewis College, Durango, Colorado. Lovely town, great place. Not very far from here. Actually, a very easy drive from here. From there, went up to St. Anselm College in Manchester, New Hampshire.
And that's the way they talk up there.
There are no O's in North Boston and Manchester. Yeah, I love the great place, small Catholic school of 2,000 students. And from there, went to a SUNY, one of the State University of New York schools, and took them from a JC into the NCAA for a 4-year period. And then that landed me at Texas A&M International, as I was also commissioner of the league we formed when I was at SUNY. And so that league formation allowed me, just as a part-time job as commissioner at a Division III institution, to work raising money at TAMU, which was a great experience for me in a lot of ways. I met a lot of good people I liked, still know them, and I'll see one of my good friends tomorrow night, the TAMU's men's soccer coach, Claudio Arias, who's coming up with this team to play our men's soccer team. And we'll probably get together tonight for one, perhaps. We'll see. And then I took some time off to address some family personal issues, and got those resolved successfully in some minds and not some in some other minds. But I think the end result was very good for all parties in a lot of ways. And so this opening happened here, and I called up, and I knew who the AD was, and Dr. Paul Weir. And I asked my brother John, what did he think of Paul Weir? And he said, well, always seemed like a pretty nice guy on the sidelines at Mexico State and University of Mexico. And he says, I only whacked him 2 or 3 times. And if you know what whacking means by an official, that means they teed him up. And he said, I only got him a few times. And he says he didn't mind. He understood. And I called Paul on the opening that he had, and I suggested that I could help him out because it kind of fit what I wanted to do again, without having a 24/7, 365 job. It's enough of a job that I have, but the AD job can be 24/7, 365. And so this was a perfect fit for me anyways. That's why I came, because we met. I came out here on my own to check it out, and I surprised him one day. And he said, where are you? And I says, well, I'm downtown about 2 blocks from your office. And can we get together for coffee? He says, well, let's get together. So here I am.
Well, Kelly, what are your specific responsibilities in the athletic department?
My responsibilities are primarily events, operations. There's always that revolves facilities, and I have an oversight on football evaluation because I have a background in football. I played it, coached it back in my days, and I worked at 4 institutions that we had football at those schools, and I've gone through the process of Division III, Division II, and the starting processes of moving a program to Division I. So I know the pieces of the puzzle in football. So that's primarily what I do with here.
Well, Kelly, obviously, we think we know what we're getting into when we take a job, and there are surprises, some of them unpleasant, some of them pleasant. What's been the most pleasant surprise about Eastern?
The most pleasant surprise here is there's an extremely high level of quality of coaching staff across the board. Uh, in every sport that I've met, and I've met, I believe, every coach now. Uh, since I was focusing on the outdoor events at the stadium in the fall, I got to meet more of football, obviously, because I'm working with them all the time, but also the men's and women's soccer coaches, also with track and field and cross country coaches, because they work out there as well too. Uh, uh, I've had a chance to work with Sia on a very limited basis on the volleyball because Mike Molina has been handling most of the volleyball stuff this fall. And I'm working directly with the basketball coaches, Megan and with Brent, as they transition to the start of their seasons coming up. So extremely high quality people, high quality when it comes to their perspectives and their coaching abilities. And you get that when you sit down and have a cup of coffee with them and you find out who and what they are. And I like every single one of them so far. Oh, forgot baseball and softball as well. I work with them as well too because they have their non-traditional season. They're doing their World Series right now. Their non-traditional seasons. I get a kick out of that, and I've yet to get in the batting cage with the baseball team because I used to play baseball in college back in my day too. And the coaches keep saying, "You got to come over here and try it." And I said, "Well, the legs don't move quite as quick as they used to, but I'll get in the cage sometime."
As long as the hands are quick through the zone, that's all
That's
that
that's
matters.
all that matters. So I says you don't have a bat size that we used to use when I was playing either. So our bats were like 35, 36 inches long at that time, and they're a little heavier. Now they're like 33, 34 inches. They weigh nothing, and that's all whip. That's all they have.
Well, Kelly, you chose a very interesting year to become the operations chief for football because we added 3 teams to the Lone Star Conference. All 3 of them a little far away, and we had our first really long road trip last weekend. But everybody got there safe and sound and back safely as well.
Yeah, they did. Western Oregon is a unique place, and you had Central Washington up there as well too, and Simon Fraser. If people don't know that whole equation and why they're part of the Lone Star in this short-term test period, I believe is what they're looking at it as, is that the Lone Star was getting short teams, and the Division II schools in the West Coast, those are the only 3 I just discussed. Because Humboldt State dropped the sport. You had Azusa Pacific drop the sport. You had Western Washington drop the sport. Uh, Dixie State went Division I from who they were in the RMAC, but they probably could have been aligned with that same. They were aligned with that same group for some time. Before that, as Division II institution. Once you get down to 3 schools, they're struggling out there to find teams to play. The Lone Star, which is my background tells me that the strongest football conference in the country in Division II, top to bottom. There's no question about it. Most people will say it Lone Star, number 1, toughest. Um, that's kind of why you have these trips coming up. They're coming to us most of the season, and we're gonna have to go to them once or twice a year for as long as this relationship stands. And it's harder to make that trip for flights if you haven't done it very often in the past. You're used to getting a couple buses and a van. It's different than making sure you get to the airport. Everyone has to have their ID in place or passport in place. They can't have a mistake or else they get left behind. That's just air travel right now. And I've done that before. I've done that a lot. And if you don't get it right, I actually wanted to make that trip to Monmouth, Oregon, because my son is actually an engineer at Intel up in Portland.
Wow.
So I was kind of looking forward to that. See if we can get up there and do it. We had too much going on here at the time to get away and do that. And we'll get together again some other time, but it would have been a nice little trip to make it work. And I've been on trips like that, so I know what the struggles would be going up to it. But it sounded like after the review with the coaching staff that most of the trip went well. There's always little things that go wrong that you're
Simon Fraser.
and Simon Fraser, but Simon Fraser is determined on where they're going to be playing next year. Are they going to be playing in British Columbia, or
Or
are they
in
going to
Washington.
be in Washington? And that's the question mark that has yet to be determined.
Kelly, I guarantee you we'll bring you in next year and answer that question. But thanks so much for being our guest, and we'll remind people of Greyhound football a little closer to home. They're in Greyhound Stadium Saturday against UTPB.
This coming Saturday, UTPB. A great opportunity for us to play and I think succeed. Because if you look at the scores and you look at the matchups, we're pretty good right there right now. I like our chances.
Well, Kelly, thanks so much, and best of luck to Greyhound Athletics moving forward.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Well, that is going to wrap up the interview segment of Sportslook, so we'll clear the set, and I'll finish up with an overtime right now. Three nights ago, Kyrie Irving of the Brooklyn Nets went off for 37 points against the Memphis Grizzlies. Not to be outdone, his teammate Kevin Durant also scored 37 points against the Memphis Grizzlies. Pretty good, right? Yeah, except for the fact that John Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies scored 38 points, and not to be outdone, his teammate Desmond Bane also scored 38 points. Now you do the math, add those 4 numbers up, that totals 150 points scored by 4 individuals. And in case you're curious, that is an all-time record in the NBA for 4 individuals. Well, that will wrap up an overtime, and that will wrap up an episode of Sportslook. I'd like to thank my 2 guests, Megan De Los Reyes and Kelly Higgins. I'd like to thank my floor crew, Mr. Dennis, my director tonight. So for all those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.